Get those solar panels installed at your home or residence by going to onesolarsolution.com. Bringing you the world news coming up next. This is Radio Caravan, the world news read by Shabnam Modgil. Anger, frustration and sadness over the decision not to charge Kentucky police officers for Breonna Taylor's death poured into American streets as protesters lashed out at a criminal justice system they say is stacked against black people. Violence seized the demonstrations in her hometown of Louisville as gunfire rang out and wounded 2 police officers. These 2 were shot in the downtown of Louisville last night amid the protests over the death of Breonna Taylor. Came hours after Kentucky's Attorney General announced that no officers were indicted for their role in the fatal police shooting of Taylor, a black emergency medical worker killed in her own home. Both officers in stable condition, one alert, the other undergoing surgery. Kentucky's black attorney general choked up when explaining why a grand jury didn't seek criminal charges against police officers for her death, but his sympathetic words fell on many deaf ears. Some big names in sports and entertainment also took to social media last night to voice their outrage over the announcement that no officers will be charged for their role in the death of Breonna Taylor. And George Clooney has joined these stars. He was born and raised in Kentucky. Texas Senator Ted Cruz objected to language in the resolution regarding the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish that her successor not be named until a new president is installed. Ginsburg reportedly made the statement to her granddaughter before she passed. And with speculation swirling over his pick for U.S. Supreme Court, President Trump heads to Florida today, hoping to shore up support in that hotly contested state ahead of the November 3rd elections. The race between the two looked like a toss-up among likely voters in Florida and Arizona. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has opened a surprising fundraising lead over President Trump with $141 million more in the bank than the Trump campaign has, and that cash is funding a surge of Biden ads in swing states and beyond. President Trump's campaign is discussing contingency plans that would involve bypassing the result of November's election, and he again declined to commit to a peaceful transfer of power if he loses the election. He took aim at Meghan Markle yesterday, a day after she and her husband Prince Harry in a video urged American voters to reject hate speech, misinformation and online negativity, a veiled reference most believe to the president. And former President Barack Obama released a video on Twitter urging followers to vote for Joe Biden to ensure America's democracy endures. Republicans have threatened to oust Speaker Nancy Pelosi if she tries to impeach Donald Trump for a second time. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has warned Americans not to trust Donald Trump if he says a coronavirus vaccine is safe, but to rely instead on the word of scientists like Dr. Anthony Fauci. Missouri Governor Mike Parson, a Republican who has steadfastly refused to require residents to wear masks, tested positive for the coronavirus. And more than 90% of Americans remain susceptible to contracting the COVID-19, making the idea of achieving herd immunity in the United States all but impossible without massive deaths. World leaders gathering remotely yesterday criticized the haphazard global response to a microscopic virus that has unleashed economic havoc and taken nearly 1 million lives in its march across the globe. And in the words of Kazakhstan's president, it was a critical collapse of global cooperation. Canada has entered a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, said Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, warning that the country was on the brink of a surge if people did not follow public health guidelines. A group of prominent former U.S. officials is joining state and local governments, U.S. lawmakers, religious leaders and resettlement agencies in urging the Trump administration to increase refugee admissions in fiscal year 2021 amid historic need around the world. And NASA's chief is telling lawmakers it was crucial for the United States to maintain a presence in Earth's orbit after the International Space Station is decommissioned so that China does not gain a strategic advantage. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo warned U.S. politicians at the state and local level to be vigilant around Chinese diplomats who, he said, could be trying to woo them as part of Beijing's propaganda and espionage campaign. Tensions are rising along the Pacific coast of South America as a giant Chinese fishing fleet of roughly 300 vessels moves from the edge of the Galapagos marine preserves to the waters of Peru. And Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro blasted United States sanctions in his address to the UN General Assembly yesterday, while avoiding any mention of a report accusing his government of crimes against humanity. Arab leaders voiced fears also yesterday before the United Nations of new conflict in the region as tensions soar between Iran and the United States. Saudi Arabia's King Salman made a rare address to the UN General Assembly, using the moment to highlight the foundational notions of his regime's steadfast commitment to the Palestinians, his stature as custodian of Islam's holiest sites, and his assertion that Iran is responsible for much of the region's instability. Eastern Libyan forces have said they killed the leader of the Islamic State group in North Africa during a raid in the southern desert city of Sebha. And Amnesty International said that thousands of Europe-bound migrants who were intercepted and returned to Libyan shores this year were forcefully disappeared after being taken out of unofficial detention centers run by militia allied with the UN-supported government in the capital of Tripoli. The head of the Africa Centers for Disease Control has praised African states for managing to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Africa has seen about 1.4 million cases and 34,000 deaths since February. A surge of COVID-19 cases in Europe risks becoming a deadly double epidemic of flu and coronavirus infections. France introduced new measures to fight the rapid resurgence of the pandemic in major cities, adding to risks weighing on an already slowing economic recovery. Poland was hit by a record daily rise in coronavirus cases today, attributable to increased direct contact between people after a lifting of restrictions. And Swiss health authorities have ordered a quarantine for a staggering 2,500 students at a prestigious hospitality management school in the city of Lausanne after significant outbreaks of the coronavirus that are a suspected byproduct of off-campus partying. United Nations and Britain said they would co-host a global climate summit on the 12th of December, the 5th anniversary of the landmark Paris Agreement. And more than 200 British paratroopers parachuted into southern Ukraine this month in a move that a Ukrainian general described as being a message for Russia. Authorities have rescued 88 pilot whales and are attempting to free 20 others that survived Australia's worst mass stranding as crews prepared to remove 380 decomposing carcasses from the shallows of Tasmania. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. Hong Kong pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong said he was arrested again today for allegedly participating in an unauthorized assembly last year in October. And China is coercing hundreds of thousands of people in Tibet into military-style training centers that experts say are akin to labor camps. The former head of Interpol, an ex-spy chief and a Xinjiang governor accused of trading power for sex are just some of the high-profile officials to suffer spectacular falls from grace in President Xi Jinping's purge of the Chinese Communist Party's upper echelons. And a bottled water and vaccine tycoon has become China's wealthiest person in a day also marked by massive losses among the world's tech elite. Zhong Shanshan's net worth has reached 58.7 billion, 2 billion more than Jack Ma's. According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, he is now Asia's second richest person behind India's Mukesh Ambani and is the 17th wealthiest in the world. The recent understanding between India and China by the foreign ministers in Moscow earlier this month and military commanders this week are intended to begin the process of a limited disengagement and ensure a continued standstill as the line of actual control amid a deep trust deficit between the two sides. After its recent move to include the map showing some areas of Pithogarh in its school textbooks as well as on coins, the Nepalese government is now planning to conduct a census in these areas, which it has been claiming as its own. Former Australia cricketer and renowned commentator Dean Jones has passed away this morning following a massive cardiac arrest in Mumbai. He was 59 years old. And Kings 11 Punjab and Royal Challengers Bangalore headlining match 6 of the IPL today. Virat Kohli has won the toss and elected to field. Ankita Raina could not go past the second round at the French Open qualifier, suffering a straight set defeat against Japan's Kurumi Nara. She lost the second round contest 3-6, 2-6 in 1 hour and 21 minutes. And at a time when diplomatic receptions are a rarity, both External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval both attended Saudi Arabia's National Day. From the politicians to lawyers and activists, names of various prominent personalities have come up in charge sheets filed by the Delhi police in the Delhi riots case, include the names of Congress leader Salman Khurshid and advocate Prashant Bhushan. India's COVID-19 caseload has breached the 57 lakh mark, while 46 lakh people have recovered from the disease. 75% of the 86,000 COVID-19 cases reported in a span of 24 hours in the country are concentrated in 10 states and union territories, including Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Delhi and Chhattisgarh. Officials said the Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia has been admitted with COVID-19 to the Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan Hospital in the capital. And the second wave is at its peak in Delhi right now. Delhi police, meanwhile, have issued more than 3 lakh challans between June and now for violation of COVID-19 norms in the national capital. And the national capital has been the driest September for Delhi in 16 years. But Mumbai recorded the second highest 24-hour rain spell in the last 26 years. We do have the passage of an agriculture reform bill in Parliament, but the protests in Haryana continue, with several organizations gearing up to support the Bharat Bandh that has been called for tomorrow. Pakistan now has an even more important role in ending the Afghan war than it did in arranging a peace deal with the Taliban, said William Todd, Washington's new envoy for Islamabad. And Prime Minister Imran Khan will address a high-level panel on financial accountability, transparency and integrity on the sidelines of the ongoing UN General Assembly today. And the National Assembly deferred consideration of 3 important bills, with the opposition members surprising many by declaring that it was ready to pass the government's National Accountability Bill. Bringing you the world news coming up next.